Despite being one of the smallest farms you can build, witch farms serve a key pillar in many servers, directly dictating the pace of their progression, and as such, have had an optimization journey stretch beyond other farms. However, this video is about the end of that journey. Witches are a good, lag-efficient source of redstone for those who don't want to waste hours trading or destroying the environment, while also providing other decent drops worth storing as well. Witch hut-based farms have thus existed for a long time, and even though they only produced around 800 redstone per hour at the time, large servers would have a network of these farms running at once, as they are the fuel behind much larger projects. However, 1.14 then came around and introduced raids. Raids spawned witches, and since you could stack multiple raids at once, raid farms easily outpaced any other source of witches, obsoleting witch hut farms. Since then, small changes have only made witch farms worse to the point where in 1.20 they could not even produce 300 redstone per hour. 1.21 then happened where Bad Omen got reworked and made stacking multiple raids at once impossible. Compensation? More redstone per witch killed. That's it. But now, a single witch hut produces around 7,200 redstone per hour, and outperforms current raid farms in terms of witch drops, so their relevance is now back and needs to be addressed for those in need. The bounding box we are provided with is tiny. It's 9x7 and can only fit 3 platforms to give a total of 189 spawning spaces. So each spawning space has very high value, and we want to make sure witches are always able to spawn in each space. Now, due to the low spawning spaces, the mob cap, or the maximum amount of hostile mobs that can exist at once, can't reasonably get full, and thus does not affect this farm compared to other mob farms. Instead, there are 2 factors that block witch spawns: other witches with their collision boxes, and moving blocks. Mobs can't spawn on moving blocks, and this lasts for 2 game ticks, or 1/10 of a second. This is time spent not spawning witches, and with a bounding box this tiny, spending little under a quarter of a second just moving a floor back and forth can compound over time and make a significant difference in rates to some players. We know from using commands that the maximum amount of redstone you can get from a single witch hut, reasonably, and I'm not elaborating, is around 8,700 per hour with looting 3. This maximum is what creates the efficiency percentage you see in a lot of witch farms. But a lot of the optimization comes down to people experimenting and making good decisions to increase the utilization of the spawning area. Take my buddy's farm for example, that shifts each floor on a clock. That's an entire spawning platform invalidated for spawning without even guaranteeing a witch, and this is reflected in the rates, producing around 8,300 out of the 8,700 redstone per hour, giving a roughly 95% efficient farm, as said in the video. A simple yet smart improvement you may think of is to detect the witch existing before even shifting the floor, reducing the amount of blocks moved over time. This is what RSDKH's farm does. It has a clock, but only shifts the rows of blocks witches are on by detecting them with a tripwire. This increases the rates to around 8,500 redstone per hour, a 98% efficiency. But now you might be wondering, how exactly do you improve the rates from here if you're already moving what seems to be the minimum amount of blocks possible? Well, find a way that doesn't need to move any blocks. Enter the Johnny Raid Captain. This method was first showcased by Tuno2Name, and it uses the combination of 2 behaviors, the Raid Captain and the Johnny Vindicator. The Vindicator Raid Captain spawns during each wave of a raid and commands all raiders within an 8-block radius to attack a specific target, and the Johnny Vindicator behavior is to just attack any non-illagers. The combination of these 2 behaviors can lead to some interesting results, and you may have noticed my wording here, because I literally bolded them. But raiders are all of these mobs, yet illagers only consist of these mobs. Say a Johnny Raid Captain sees a witch. The Johnny wants to attack the witch, a non-illager mob, and as the captain tells all other raiders to do the same, including the witch itself. And since the witch sees itself as a raider, it will attack itself by standing still and throwing healing potions on itself indefinitely. Ravagers also produce some funny results. Johnny Captain sees the Ravager, and going over what we just discussed, the Ravager is basically told to attack itself. The Ravager, only having its bite attack in a dream, just starts attacking itself and dies. Peak gameplay. But in the case of making this behavior productive, if the captain has line of sight to a target yet the commanded raiders don't, they will try to pathfind to them. So that's the bulk of this farm. Have 2 Johnny Raid Captains on each side to cover the whole spawning area, give them a target which only they can see, that being the zombie in a raft, and the witches will walk off trying to reach said zombie. No redstone, no moving blocks, max utilization. Now if this setup looks familiar in any sense, it's because I had this farm working a long time ago, and even gave it to my friend to use in his video. I've only made slight improvements since then, however, I didn't have time till now to showcase it. I guess I'm just that chopped. The reliability here is based on the mob aggro. We need to make sure only the captains can see the zombie, while making sure said captains can't see the witches in the spawning area, to prevent the small soft lock I mentioned just a minute ago. Thus, the captains are in cauldrons to raise their eye line so they can't see any witches in the spawning area, while these blocks in the raft here create a tiny slit so only the captain can see the zombie and not the witches in the farm. The rest of this farm is then covered to block light access, and then you add this nice rim on top of the roof. There aren't many videos explaining this roof in full detail, at least compared to other terminology I didn't bother explaining in the past. But honestly, I believe this topic deserves its own video, since it impacts both designers and people choosing whose farm to use, so definitely stick around for whenever that video comes out, hopefully soon. But to put it short, remember that height map topic from the previous video? Well, this position isn't the mob spawn location, but rather the origin for multiple mobs to spawn from. What the game does with this position is that it adds a horizontal offset to this origin position before even trying to spawn mobs. And it just so happens to be that the shift can start from outside the farm and then wander into the farm and spawn mobs, compared to not having this roof where it won't happen at all. This algorithm is the crutch behind many farms designed by someone with some experience, and without this roof, that's more than 1,000 redstone per hour just gone. The other important thing is that this whole motion won't happen if the origin is inside a solid conductive block. That's why this whole area under the roof is often clear of such blocks, and is also why you often see stairs and similar blocks commonly used at the foot level of spawning platforms. So we got no moving blocks and proper spawning conditions to spawn as many witches as possible, and using a simple looting setup, this yields 8,660 redstone per hour, a 99.6% efficiency, where the missing 0.4% comes from the collision boxes of existing witches blocking a few spawning spaces for a small time. This small time though is still a point of optimization and is the main difference between mine and other Vindicator based farms that have released since Tuno's demo. By the way, all the rates for all the farms mentioned come from repeated tests done by SoulEdit. They ran these farms multiple times for the average and compared the results, and I've just been using the mean value. However, I wouldn't call this a full farm yet. No single witch hut farm should need a perimeter just to prevent the mob cap from filling up by mobs outside the farm. Let's be real here, that is a poor design decision. So we gotta bring those witches to the player. We'll place the player high up to make sure most of the ground is too far away to spawn other mobs, minimizing the amount of spawn proofing needed. And we'll use a bubble elevator to move the witches to the player. This is placed next to the roof to not mess with the previously mentioned height map of the farm, and we'll use water to push the witches to the elevator. But now we got a new problem: random despawns. Mobs can randomly despawn if they are greater than 32 blocks away from the player and have existed for 10 seconds without taking damage. The setup clearly takes more than 10 seconds to move the witch, and just letting them despawn tanks the rates that was hard earned, so we need a way to prevent this. A lot of people use magma blocks to damage them and reset this timer, but this is a one-time use. Witches will drink fire resistance after and then still be able to despawn due to the slow travel time. There needs to be one extra layer of damage. Solving such open-ended problems in any position often relies on understanding the problem on a deep level, researching your options, and picking the best route based on the situation and preference. Putting this in practice, we can compile our damage sources and narrow down our choices. While a decent choice may be pufferfish for the poison effect, there is another option that doesn't require any traveling if we just review what we went over: another witch. Reviewing what we went over earlier, witches would be commanded to attack a non-illager mob, and the zombie is also not a raider. The witches would thus be throwing poison potions at the mob, which deals continuous damage. So that's exactly what this witch is doing, throwing poison potions at the zombie, completely overshooting, in which the potion is then slowed down with water and dropped onto the other witches. And because potion duration is based on distance from the bottle to the witch's hitbox, this block layout is meant to maximize the duration of poison given. To make sure the witches receive the effect without delay, a 2-wide water stream is used, before they are then squeezed into a 1-wide stream, all while being pelted by poison potions. This removes all random despawning, making sure none of the witches spawn go to waste, yet still hold the max rates. And the kill chamber is also straightforward. The player's in crawl mode, using the gap in between the chest and the block above to peek through and hit the witches' heads without retaliation. In terms of weapon of choice, a sword works as it always has, but now there's a new option: spear jabs. Spear jabs have a fixed cooldown between each attack, which blocks out excess inputs. We can rebind the attack key to a keyboard key, which uses your computer's key repeat rate function, and holding the key with a key weight works as AFK attack as well. No clicker, no external downloads, just how your computer works. XP and drops are then moved with water, where you can use any preferred storage. I'm just leaving that as is, mainly because preference is a thing, and you likely made other farms with storage in the past, so I can't necessarily imagine there being any pain in copy and pasting if you know how the storage works. So let's review before building this farm. We optimize the physical shape to spawn as many witches as possible. We then use 2 Johnny raid captains to command the witches to attack an out-of-sight target. They pathfind off the spawning area trying to reach said target, and are damaged with magma and poison to prevent them from despawning, leading to a 99.6% efficient farm, producing just under 8700 redstone dust per hour in vanilla Java 1.21 and up. Now let's actually build this. This part will act more like cliff notes and we'll skip the obvious steps, because the video is meant to clear that up to make sure you actually know what you're doing first. Of course I'll be using my own block palette, but feel free to use the files given to make your own block palette, applying what was went over in this video. To actually build this, we'll start by scouting a good location, then getting the needed mobs, and then building the farm. To start, a good witch hut, due to the aforementioned height map, is ideally the lowest witch hut possible, and the lowest normal one looks like this, where the porch is 2 blocks above the water, or at Y64 when looking at the block. They of course can be lower, but their chances of existing are low. Thus, this will be used as our reference hut. Witch huts always generate with a single witch and a cat that don't despawn, yet count towards the mob cap, so try to capture them if you can, either to be the aforementioned potion thrower, or for whatever project you have in mind. From here, the bottom spawning platform is 2 blocks below the porch, or the same Y level as the water, covering the whole footprint of the witch hut, and the next 2 platforms logically placed on top. This is where the bounding box of the witch hut should normally be. We will then wall off the entire witch hut to make sure the inside of the farm is dark, keeping in mind our block of choice to optimize the aforementioned spawning algorithm and leaving out any corners to optimize said height map. I'm using tinted glass because this is a showcase, but you should be able to reasonably come up with a different block palette if you need. After covering the farm, this is a good chance to go high up and make sure only witches spawn inside the area. Note that witch huts intersecting biome borders or server configurations may alter their bounding box location, at least according to my limited knowledge from what I see on the internet. If possible, you can use carpet mod/spawn list command to try to find the area if you are unsure. Once confirming we have the right spot, the long slide will be your funneling system, and of course, leave 2 open spots for the Vindicator captains. This is where your Bad Omen 1 potions get to shine, since it spawns the least amount of raiders. Head to wherever you think you can easily transport mobs across. The plan here is to capture all the raiders in boats, and then boat out the captain far enough away so they don't count towards the raid. You also need a villager, maybe one that you hate, and a position of interest, i.e. a bed or workstation, in order to start the raid. After starting the raid, capture all the raiders, pick off any excess raiders, and leave just 1 regular raider and the Vindicator captain in separate boats. Using leads, cart off the captain more than 96 blocks away from the position of interest to make them not count towards the raid. You'll know you're far enough away when the raid bar disappears. Return to the villager and kill the last raider to start wave 2 and repeat the same steps. Sometimes your wave 1 won't spawn a Vindicator. If that's the case, you can capture excess Vindicators in the next wave and turn them into captains by giving them a banner after you move the first captain and before you end the raid. When you get the amount you need, you can break the position of interest to end the raid and do whatever you want with the villager after. Transport both captains and name them Johnny as shown and drop them into the cauldrons, making sure to flip the trapdoor above their head afterwards. Now build the rest of the farm as shown in either file you used, assuming you know how to use them. Make sure you cross-check what you know with what you're doing. Outside of that, the only other major note in terms of block placing is that you need temporary blocks to allow the potion catching water to spread in the first place. In terms of the remaining entities, the raft is placed on the campfire, which is obviously unlit, and driven into the wall. The witch goes in first so that way when the zombie enters the raft, it will be placed in the back. Any similar mob works as well, as long as you are confident in your reasoning for the switch. And that should be most of the farm, with the rest being straightforward block placing and as storage of choice. The captain should be aggroed on the zombie and the witch should be throwing potions overhead. The aggro may not immediately take place, but reloading does help reset aggro. For final reference, the slab you AFK on is 126 blocks above the bottom spawning pad, and spawn-proof the bottom as you please, with the gear needing to operate this being pretty self-explanatory. I want to end this with a straightforward yet true thank you for the massive support over the recent uploads. For granted, deep explanation, this style is still new to me. I'm trying new ideas, and not everything I have I believe can fit this style, but I'll make something out of it. Thanks for watching, and catch you around.